Welcome to Politics Done Right. I am your host, Egberto Willies. This is a progressive program that will take the mystery out of politics. This is the program that will encourage you to make sure government becomes we the people. Whether you are liberal, progressive, conservative, or otherwise, you get to air your point of view. We are an independent media outlet that, unlike mainstream media beholden to corporations, we only owe allegiance to you. Remember, you can also send me a tweet at EGBERTOWILLIES. That is at Egberto Willies. Let us engage. It is Politics Done Right. Well, folks, welcome to one more edition of Politics and Random. Egberto Willies, your host. Thank you so kindly for being a part of the show. We are going to have, as usual, a great show for you today. Let me go ahead and make sure that I can get connectivity with all my peeps. How are you guys doing? I trust everybody's doing fine. Look, we have some serious stuff to discuss today. You know, I like to kind of start a little bit light, but as we go on, folks, we have a lot to talk about. Bear with me one second. Let me go ahead and make sure that I can see the chat live. Great. All right, I can see both chats. I have to switch windows, of course, until we get something better. All right, folks, welcome aboard. Welcome aboard. In the house, we have starting. The first person in today was AVQ, El Senor Michael Rudden from Brooklyn, New York. We also have Patrick Magner from, where's Patrick from? Houston, Texas. What's wrong with me? We also have in the house, bear with me as I scroll down, Lee the Bearcat, Austin, Texas. We also have Eric Hayes, King Wadatescasita, and E2247 from all over, Joanne from Los Angeles, California. And in our chat so far that I have, and I started late, but we are here on Substack, Kame Cole, Kathy Catrus, Catherine Hill, Walter Reen. How you doing, Walter? Walter was a great guest a few days ago. Alan Thornton, should we talk among ourselves? Yes, you should. It's a family. You're speaking among everybody, and I'm hoping eventually we'll have the composite chats connected like we have with the most of the others. LBW says, good afternoon from Kingwood, Texas. How you doing, beautiful LBW? And Devante Goins, Skylar Murray Hill, Joe Banta, and the rest I probably can find on our screen. Yes, they are there. Lana Foley from Maryland. From Maryland? What city in Maryland? Love to kind of get the cities as well. Anyway, folks, we have a great program for you today. I have a great interview, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to start the program with the interview. If I think I had it loaded, I thought I had it loaded. ¿Dónde está el programa? Lo tenía aquí, pero se me desapareció. It disappeared on me. Well, let me see if it's in the screen. Journalist, according to that, it's somewhere in here, but I don't see it on the screen, so it seems like I may have to load that program again. So let's go ahead and do that. Journalist, let's see if it'll load this time. It loaded this time. How comes it's in there, but not elsewhere? All right, let's go ahead and make sure that shows up on the on the map, because it is essential that you listen to what this journalist that I've interviewed him a couple of times, and I think you guys are going to like what he has to say. Of course, let's go to the map and make sure it is mapped correctly in the house. It looks like it is mapped. Yep, it looks like it's mapped. So, all right, but before I do that, I messed up. We need to get to some of what you guys are saying. Michael Rudnan, Rudnan, you have a lot today. I can't get to all of them because of what we have. MS Magazine, in just 100 days, Trump has already attempted to enact 1/3 of Project 2025. A new community-based tracker reveals how quickly the Trump administration is administering the policies that erode civil rights, healthcare access, and worker protections, reproductive rights. Thank you for that link. I need to. Hey, Michael, if you don't mind, can you go ahead and send me that link with the tracker? I want to have that for personal use as well. Newsweek, Americans face empty shelves within weeks due to the tariffs. We know that a lot of ships are not leaving. Some of them have actually turned around from what we understand. CNN, the last boats without crippling tariffs from China are arriving. The countdown to shortages and higher prices has begun. Some of the last cargo ships carrying Chinese goods without crippling tariffs you are currently drifting into U.S. ports. Come next week, though, that will change. JP Morgan report details that overall imports into the United States during the second half of 2025 are expected to fall at least 20%. That is huge. That is huge. Uh, JP Morgan expects imports from China, rising if not easily replaced by imports from other countries. A collapse of this magnitude would not only sharply boost prices, but also significantly hit supplies. Michael also have from Kyle Kulninski, Secular Talk, said in recent video, Trump doesn't know what the F he's doing. It's either that or the argument about him being some sort of a foreign agent who's purposely trying to destroy the country. I think the latter is true. There's a journalist that I'm trying to get an interview with. She hasn't yet responded, but she gave me some links. She sent me some links to explore, but she hasn't responded to coming online, and I won't do anything with that until I get her on the program. Let's go ahead and continue. Lady Bearcat says, I think it's last time Orange Guys get his turn, so he's letting it rip. Sorta, kinda, maybe. I don't know. E2247 says, consistent reports of persons who are attempting to get any food and aid left in Gaza are being targeted and murdered by Zionist forces in. It's not getting enough coverage what's going on in Gaza. And, we are guilty of that as well. But sometimes you throw your hands up in the air and says, what can we do? We are facing some very severe issues here in the United States as well. We have, there are some people that complain in the morning program that there are certain things that I should cover, and they're right. But let me tell you how I look at some of this as well. And please correct me if you think I'm looking at it in the wrong manner. But when you're in an airplane and the airplane is going to crash, one of the things that they tell you is put the mask on you first. You have to survive in order to save the others. Sometimes, however, the process of you surviving, a lot of others are being harmed. But, it's not an easy thing. And I don't have the answer. I'll be just honest. I don't have the answer. We can only fight so many battles at one time. And Donald Trump, that very evil person, is so bad. Egberto, my comments came after the video. No problem. Thank you, my brother. Let's see what else we have. The tracker sent over to your. Thank you for sending that, Senor. I appreciate that kindly. All right, let's go ahead and start with the interview, and then we'll continue thereafter. Welcome to another edition of Politics Done Right. Today, I'm honored once again to have a journalist, a prolific journalist, Norman Solomon. Norman's an American journalist, activist, media critic, and the co-founder and national coordinator of RootsAction.org. He is the author of War Made Easy and is a longtime associate of Fairness and Accuracy in Reporting. His new book, or his recent book, War Made Invisible, How America Hides the Human Toll of Its Military Machine, is a must read. So we're not talking about that today, but remember that book. It's a must read. Check it out because it's something that I think would inform us quite a bit. One of the reasons, first of all, welcome, Solomon. How are you doing today?
Thank you, Egberto. Glad to be with you again.
Now, look, Norman, let me just say this. I follow your work. You know that I also, everything that I can get from you, I try to help flood the zone on the internet with it because you're a prolific writer and you see things that many don't see. Recently, you wrote an article that I found on Common Dreams. And the title of that article is Establishment Democrats Are Blowing the Fight Against a Fascist Trump. Why did you write that, first of all? I think I have an idea, but why did you write that?
Well, as the saying goes, the goalposts keep moving, and it's a human characteristic, but also a basically political one. We get into denial, and a repressive regime becomes normalized, and what seems absolutely outrageous one month, the next month can seem like, oh, well, that's just the usual. That is so pernicious, so dangerous, and a way in which, as Jason Stanley, the author of the book, How Fascism Works, the way in which fascism works. It incrementally, and this is apocryphal, doesn't actually happen, the frog that boils a degree at a time in the pot and does not jump out. We need to be very clear that what's happening is an autocracy moving toward, not there yet, but moving toward dictatorship. And so when the Democratic Party as a whole engages in business as usual, they need to friggin' wake up. And it won't come from inside the officials of the party. It won't come from the apparatus of the Democratic National Committee. It's got to come from the grassroots. We have to say, and it is true, the Democratic Party is the only electoral apparatus that can stop this march towards fascism through the MAGA Republican Party.
Now, you use one of Reverend Martin Luther King's phrases, the paralysis of analysis. How do you see that playing a part in what we're doing, what we're seeing in the Democratic Party today?
It's understandable but dangerous that we often simply can slide into reading about it, talking about it, having a sort of the spectator role in trying to understand, which is necessary but insufficient. We can contemplate the political navel till the cows come home, to mix metaphors, but we have to not only analyze, we have to take action. We have to organize. The right wing has done that for decades. They haven't simply analyzed and they haven't simply parsed the nuances of politics. They've been planning and organizing for the long haul. And while progressives certainly have been engaged in such a process, we cannot simply rely on, as good as the material might be that we read and listen to and see, that's the basis, the foundation that we build on, but it's not enough. We've got to keep pushing, and we have to keep insisting that our political and social institutions fight back against this reactionary, tremendously damaging regime.
Now, it is interesting because a lot of folks back in the 90s, I think it was, gave President Clinton a lot of kudos for winning 2 terms, as, probably 2 terms that he was unlikely to win. And, I always took exception to, please, let's remember that Clinton, I don't think ever got the majority, like Trump, never got the majority of the vote. He did a famous thing known as triangulation. And to some extent, I believe triangulation and neoliberalism has really been a detriment to the Democratic Party because they've simply done enough to win and not enough to win hearts. Your thoughts?
They've done enough to win the White House sometimes, Clinton and Obama and Biden once, but they have not done enough to retain power in the state legislatures or to retain the Congress. And the point about Bill Clinton, among others, that's very important is that, yes, he got reelected, but the party tanked. Yes, Obama got reelected, but the party tanked.
You did something great in your article. Tell us a little bit about how badly that this tanking is about. What did we lose? In as much as Obama won two things, what happened around the country?
Well, around the country, the state legislatures had a loss of 30 chambers by the Democrats. And the Republican proportion of power during those 8 Obama years went from about 45% to 55%. So by the time the 2020 census came around, which then is the basis for reapportionment, the Republicans had a hammerlock on so many state legislatures and they could gerrymander. We're still suffering from that. That is the difference. That's why Republicans control the House right now. It's been such a close margin. And because the infrastructure, the down ballot races were so carried by Republicans. So you have to ask, how does that happen under Clinton, who lost the Congress in 1994 and they kept it, Republicans kept it for another dozen years. Has it happened? Well, it's a sort of a political narcissism. It's like the president takes care of the president, and that's the huge priority. And meanwhile, the DNC is just sort of a lapdog from the Oval Office. And then you have these losses down ballot. So this is a pattern where the Democratic Party, first of all, has not paid attention to rural areas. It's such a tragedy that the country vote has gone out in the rural areas. The country vote has gone to Republicans, if you chart it, in the last few decades by a huge accelerating margin. And also then in terms of ability to elect members of the House and Senate. So the spotlight is on the president, but we have to ask, how did the Obama presidency coexist with losing 910 seats in state legislatures around the country during those 8 years.
And what is interesting is, and I think you nailed it there about the rural vote. If we take a look at the destruction that would be the budget that Donald Trump is working on right now with the Congress, the people that are going to get hit the hardest, the people that are going to get hit the most are, in fact, rural areas as they make the changes to close Social Security offices down, close a lot of governmental jobs down. These were high-paying jobs in rural areas that are no longer going to be there supporting an economy that is already under stress. So your thoughts about that?
Well, that's a key point. There's been a lot of appropriate focus on the decimation of the federal workforce in the Washington, D.C. area, Virginia and Maryland and so forth, and in the district. But as you point out, there are rural areas where people across the country, they're dependent on these services, these outlying offices, the post offices that are sometimes being closed down, the service that's being curtailed. We should make no mistake about it. This, and I hesitate to call it an administration, this regime that has gained power for the oligarchs without any shame whatsoever, flagrantly plundering from the middle class and lower income people. These are people who do not believe at the top. They do not believe in democracy. They are savagely attacking democracy. And whatever people say about the Democratic Party, and at Roots Action, we have been highly critical of the Democratic Party, the corporatism and the militarism. Face facts, folks. The only way to take electoral power away from the Republican Party and get rid of the Republicans in Congress and their control, get rid of the Republicans controlling the White House, the only way to do it is through the Democratic Party. And so we got to face those facts and get with it.
Now, when we take a look at exactly what the Trump administration is doing in their pursuit, they're following that document that we called Project 2025. And of course, Donald Trump said, I'm not really following that. And the leader of his OMB was one of the main writers of this document. How do you feel, or how can we actually get to the people that need to hear these, equate that Project 2025 documents with, in effect, the demise of many of the rural areas, vis-a-vis rural hospitals, rural clinics, etc., because it's all already there in black and white.
That politics really matters in daily lives, and a much better job needs to be done by grassroots activists, by progressives, indeed by the Democratic Party, to convey that these are not abstract questions. This isn't like inside the Beltway, inside baseball stuff. This is about healthcare, education, housing, the environment, people's capacity to have neonatal care if they have a child, if you're going to have elderly care. These are all very human characteristics, and some folks may understandably say, and maybe they're working 2 jobs, maybe they're really stressed for personal reasons, family, health issues, whatever it may be, and understandably they might say, well, I'm not into politics. And the response is, okay, but politics is into you. All you got to do is turn on the tap and drink a glass of water, and literally politics is into you, because the extent to which there are carcinogens or not in what you're drinking is a byproduct of politics. And the unity between what kind of lives we live and can live and the kind of political choices made in state capitals and in county government and in terms of the federal government, those connections are highly, highly connected. And we've got to make that much more clear.
Now, you made a point that it's, for me, it was highlighted when Chuck Schumer was asked whether the Republican Party is doing what they needed to do. And he said, yes, we are tanking Donald Trump's numbers. His numbers are going down, and we are doing what we're supposed to do. And he never said many of the things that you've said. He never told that audience that was listening to him on Meet the Press what he was going to do effectively for them, the bread and butter issues you wrote. But there's little evidence that this is from your article. There's little evidence that the party leadership wants significant change beyond putting themselves back into power. Midway through April, the homepage of the Democratic Party seemed like a snapshot of an institution still disconnected from the angst and anger of the electorate. A pop-up that instantly obscured all else on the screen featured a drawing of a snarling Donald Trump next to the headline, We're suing Trump over the illegal executive orders. Underneath the featured message proclaimed, we're rolling up our sleeves and organizing for a brighter, more equal future. Together, we will elect Democrats up and down the ballots. A schedule of town halls in dozens of regions was nice enough, but a true sense of urgency, let alone emergency, was notably lacking.
The attitude is, let's have Trump destroy himself. He's going to collapse under his own weight. Alberto, when have we heard that before? 2016, Hillary Clinton had that attitude. He's so terrible. People will see that Trump is awful. He's just going to defeat himself. We saw that last year again. That was the attitude. And it was combined with a very explicit strategy from the Democratic Party at the top, which was, we're going to go after the white suburban vote, including the mythical unicorn called moderate Republicans. And so they ended up saying, oh, we're going to put our resources to try to persuade people who are not part of our party base. And I've read interviews with people, for instance, in Philadelphia, the swing state of Pennsylvania. Where are the resources? They're having to sort of jerry build it themselves because the party wasn't putting the resources in the communities where getting out the vote through turnout was absolutely essential. And so it's unnerving to see a lot of the statements made by, for instance, Chuck Schumer in 2016, he said, for every vote we're going to lose around the Philadelphia area, mostly people of color, lower income people, we're going to pick up two, he said, from the white people in the western part of the state. How did that turn out? It didn't. And this is fundamental, whether the Democratic Party at the top is going to stop being afraid of its own base and start engaging with it and fulfilling its potential.
Now, let me ask you if you agree with this. I think one of the reasons that they're scared of their base is actually their loyalties are with their rich benefactors. And in doing so, I don't know how different they are than a traditional, not MAGA, but than a traditional Republican. Your thoughts?
Definitely that the mega donors, the billionaires, the multi-millionaires who take out their checkbooks or wire the money in, that's the constituency. And so, in a sense, the base of the National Democratic Party, not in terms of votes, but in terms of dollars and allegiance from the head of the Democratic National Committee, from the leaders of the Democrats in the House and Senate, their base is really, really rich people and corporations. And they're not as extreme by any means as the MAGA Republicans, but they're still pretty damn wedded to the idea that to make this, quote, democracy work, you have to have the huge corporations largely calling the shots. And then every once in a while, there's sort of progressive rhetoric thrown in, and they go to a few black churches before Election Day. This is transparently phony, and people see that. Bernie Sanders has been pointing this out for many, many years now. A handful, unfortunately, just a small number of genuine progressives in the House have been yelling from the rooftops that the party has to change. That's a necessary set of voices, but definitely not sufficient. This will not change unless you and I, everybody, many, many people listening and watching right now, and people across the country who are progressively inclined, we got to keep at it. We have to keep pushing. That means organizing inside and outside the electoral arena. And one point I would add to that is that the typical politician, and this includes liberal and unfortunately many quote unquote progressive politicians, is they see social movements as subsets of electoral campaigns for them to get elected and reelected. That's backwards. It should be the other way around. Electoral campaigns are crucial, but they're subsets. They should be within social movements because that's the rising tide that lifts the boats of humanity. You think of everything we can be proud of in this country, for instance, women's right to vote, Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, civil rights legislation, gay rights legislation, women's rights, abortion rights, reproductive freedom. That and so much more is all the result of people organizing at the grassroots. It was never handed down from the powerful just because they were going to be nice.
Now, one of the only exciting things that I'm seeing right now is what Bernie and AOC are doing together. The old and the young coming together, and the people that are showing up are simply astounding. And nobody understands why right after an election loss, two people could capture that kind of excitement from the masses. And what's interesting about that is what you're seeing is as they are bringing the masses into the fold, you see a lot of the traditional Democrats trying to attenuate the meaning of what AOC and Bernie have accomplished thus far in exciting an otherwise group of folks that are simply disillusioned. What's your thoughts on that?
There's a lot of rhetoric now from the leaders of the Democratic Party about, well, we've got to speak to the working class. And indeed, from 2020 to 2024, it's astounding. Well, it's at least shocking and disturbing how much of the working class vote the Democrats lost, in a period of a few years by not delivering, and most of all, by not fighting for the working class. And it became so the bogus, phony, right-wing reactionary pseudo-populism gained the march, got the space, was able to get more and more working class votes as a result. There has been an effort, for instance, Senator Chris Murphy.
Yes.
Some very, very good things. Well, that's the good rhetoric. That's a good step. It remains to be seen how much in terms of program and fighting for working people will actually be coming to fruition. And as you pointed out a couple of minutes ago, the relationship to the very wealthy and the working class, for the working class, is crucial. Does the Democratic Party fight for fair, progressive taxation, for instance? I mean, a lot of this is just a marriage of very misogynist, jingoistic forces with the most greedy aspects of Wall Street and the tech industry. And that's the Republican Party now. And so will the Democratic Party really fight for fair taxation? Taxes, yes, they should be cut for low income and middle class people. And they should be jacked up for these corporations that are making out like bandits. Same thing with the extremely wealthy. So I think a lot of this battle, and why you have people like Mark Zuckerberg and Jeff Bezos sucking up literally within hours after Trump was elected last November, putting out tweets saying, "You're really great, President Trump, so much looking forward to working with you again." Well, that's very craven, to put it mildly. Yes. That is kissing the feet of a fascistic leader. Where have we read about that before? We've read about it in terms of Italy in the 20s. We've read about Mussolini. It in terms of Germany in the 30s. Yeah. We know where this leads, and we have to stop it.
Well, look, I think articles like what you've written here is actually what people need to read. And one of the things that I have to say is the thing about it is we have to flood the zone, and we have to get this in front of people. That is the biggest problem in the independent media, getting the voices out to the people who need to read it, not just our immediate circle where we're talking among each other, but trying to get it out there. And that is a fight. That is one of the things that we do here in independent media, and having great leaders like yourself that are putting this thing out here, I think is essential. Why don't you give me a closer, Norman?
Well, first, I want to say that this doesn't ever, and none of this that you refer to happens by accident or only people wishing. There's a saying, we must do the work of ants. And we're not talking about the sisters of parents. We're talking about ANTS. Yes. And it's daily work, and it's not glamorous. It's about getting it done throughout our lifetimes, really. That's what politics done right is all about. I know. And it is multiplied by so many people around the country who are dedicated, sincere, thinking about the future, and also aghast at what tyranny is being brought to this country. I definitely invite people to support this program, and also invite people at rootsaction.org. We have now more than 1 million people who have signed up for action alerts. We hope that you will make it more than 1,000,001. You can do that in about 30 seconds. You go to rootsaction.org, and you'll get periodic emails about how we can join forces to turn this country around.
Look, thank you so kindly, Norman Solomon. I'm excited every time I set up an interview with you, because I know that we're going to get stuff for people to go out there and do. And that is just what you did. Norman Solomon is an American journalist, activist, and media critic. and the co-founder and national coordinator of rootsaction.org. Thank you so kindly for having been on Politics Done Right.
Hey, thanks a lot for all you're doing.
All right, I hope you guys enjoyed that. Now, here is the deal, folks. I want to address Steigen Bergen Creek because I feel the passion in the statement that she makes in the chat. I mean that they make in the chat. I'm sorry. I fear that Trump is moving too fast and opposition is moving way too slow. We are going to blink and it will all be over. We better do something soon or our democracy will be gone and we will be powerless to do anything. That is the most profound message that we have right here. And I want everybody to digest that message from what they've just written there, from what Steigen Bergen Greek just wrote there. That is the absolute sentiment we should all have in our psyche and in our hearts. And if you notice, Brother Solomon spoke to that. We all have to be engaged. Yes, you can look in this chat and find the straddlers, those who just think everything is okay and that we, the lefties, are the crazy ones. Yes, they think that now. The ships are turning around in the middle of the ocean right now. We are about to get clobbered in the next few weeks, but everything is okay. They believe their Führer. They believe what their God, Donald Trump, is telling them. Well, we have to keep the love for these guys, irrespective. Because as things go bad, which they are going to go bad, they're going to sit back and they're going to do what folks normally do. Yesterday we had Pedro Sanjani Silva with us, and Pedro said that in our minds there is a self-defense mechanism that refuses to accept that we were wrong about something, and we simply try to go around in circles and justify the failure. Well, some of you may do that. Those of you who have the wherewithal to wing it, but there are many who don't have the wherewithal to wing it, and they will suffer. Steigen Berger Creek, we are for those who we know are going to need that support as the destruction continues. So, look, rest assured that yes, Donald Trump is flooding the zone and moving fast, but also rest assured that there are a lot of us out there working very, very hard. In my case, my contribution is to make sure I spread this message widely. And I promise you to continue doing that. I mean, we all have our strengths. On Thursdays I work with Neil Aquino. He's out there beating the pavement, making sure, doing his little part to confront these different politicians that are evil. Yes, there are people doing the job. We have right here locally in Kingwood, Texas, my good friend, Cindy is working her butt off. Her last name just left my mind. But Cindy is working her butt off to make sure that she organizes people in this area that make people aware of what's happening. And all throughout this city, Houston, Texas, I can point out folks that are doing stuff all over the country. Rachel Maddow points out the hundreds of daily protests that you see occurring. So people are standing up. You may think it's not making a difference, but every single one of those politicians who are supporting your demise, every single one of those politicians, rest assured that they know that people are starting to engage. And while it's not time yet, it's occurring. So I'm not just going to say keep the faith up. It's not enough to keep the faith up. It's not enough. What you have to do is go out there and be a part of the movement. So let me do this as a test. This is just a test. And I hope some of you do it. Everybody who has done something, whether it is call a congressperson, write a letter, send the fax, be on the streets, everybody who has done that, whether you are on Substack or on our different chats, please just tell me what you've done in 3 or 4 words. Put it in the chat. What you've done. I want to see if we have the engagement. So please, any one of you, all of you, what I should say, please tell me what you have done. And by the way, some of the information that you guys have provided me is actually doing something as well. But put in the chat, what have you done? Have you written a letter? Have you made a phone call? Have you not only a phone call to a politician? Have you called a family member of yours and said we have to remain engaged? Have you done anything whatsoever as opposed to just worrying? I want to ask all of you to give me an answer, and then if you have the wherewithal to do so, I really want to know. Come on, let's see this, and then after that, I'm going to tell you. I have a message for you. Lana Foley said, started a democracy group which now has over 500 members. I have hosted every national rally in our small city. We have written letters, made calls, and voices. Love you, Lana. Love you. Contrary Warrior, all of the above. Thank you, Contrary Warrior. These are our Substack folks. LBW says, call in reps and senators, spreading independent news on socials, emailing politicians, talking to anyone who will listen. This is what I'm talking about. This is what I'm talking about. There's nothing too small or nothing too large that you can do. And by the way, I want to ask you guys, just as you've mentioned that, spread the word that we're given here. Barbara Will says, I'm 78, petitions, calls, hands off in person. Excellent, excellent. Thank you. Joe says, before COVID sick, precinct leader, now email, call, phone friends, forwarded info, and recruited. Excellent. Lots of letters and donate. There you go. Patrick, I know your work because you are one of our great supporters as well. Rudnan and a few others in here as well. Thank you. What have you done? Michael Rudnan says, attended 2 out of 3 of the recent protests, donated to progressive causes, continue to push progressive message on social media. Very, very, very important. Lee de Beerkat says, I come to this show is what I have done. Very good. Now, I'm going to add one thing that I'd like to ask you specifically to do, Lee de Beerkat. Also, share our newsletters, share our programs all over, not only on the chat. The idea here that the reason I wanted to do this exercise, show that all of us have value and there's much that all of us can do. Catherine Hill says, restacking lots of political stuff, very important. And let me just tell you about Substack. You can share, you can restack on Substack. And if you take a look, there's also something that says share to. You can share to Facebook, Twitter, Blue Sky. You can also share to all the others. My thing is, when we do these programs, share everything everywhere. They have paid people to do all of this. We have to do it all ourselves. So become paid subscribers of this program and others if you can. I noticed my good friend Arturo Dominguez. You know what I do? I have been doing investigative work on all aspects of administration. Arturo Dominguez is a very hard worker. He has had some illness set back a few times, and he's still in the game. He has a great Substack. Please, please support these Substacks financially if you have the wherewithal to do so. It is so, so important because we are the independent media. My good friend John Cotter sent me a Substack this morning. And on the top of the Substack, it gave some examples of the failure of traditional media. Then it gave why we need independent media and an ask. I'm going to rip that off in my newsletters and put it to try to get more people to subscribe, to become paid subscribers. But whether you're paid or not, we can go ahead and make a difference. And as you can see, for those who answered in the chat right here, you are making a difference. And I don't say that just off the cuff. You are really making a difference. Think about it. We have hundreds of people, if you add up our Substack, Twitter, that are listening right now live. Right now live. If you add up everything, right? Imagine if every one of you shared everything that we're doing right now, our newsletters, etc. The magnitude that you would put into the space, and imagine every other program doing that. You get what's called exponential growth, and we don't need the mainstream media to lie. We can actually promote the truth through the sheer size of our grassroots movement. So folks, do it. Senator phone numbers, click on the senator's name, it links to him. Thank you for that, E2247. Let's see if I missed anybody else. I don't think I have. Okay, look. Have you guys ever heard of Burkina Faso? Burkina Faso is a former French colony. Have had a lot of corrupted leaders that were pretty much pawns of their colonial masters. And they finally got a young person to take over. I mean, he overthrew the corrupted government. And in overthrowing the corrupted government, he kicked out France. And now it seems like the United States wants to get involved to get France back in and take the reins away from this guy. I've been reading about this for a long time and watching a lot of TikToks people have been talking about. And there's one particular TikTok that touched me this morning. And I want to play that one for you all because what I think is important is for us not to buy the narrative that's going to be coming out very, very soon to justify doing military actions in Burkina Faso. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to go ahead and put that one on, and then we'll take it on the other side. But listen to this, and then we'll take it on the other side.
5 billion euros. That's how much gold France holds in its reserves. And that's without having a single gold mine in France. Are you ready for another one of my ultimate breakdown explainer videos? Well, in my opinion, this might be my best one yet. So stay locked in. Burkina Faso, a beautiful African country, blessed with an abundance of gold, once colonized by France, but they were kicked out and told to do one by this new revolutionary leader, Abraham Traoré. And the thing is, when France got kicked out of Burkina Faso, they were pissed, for obvious reasons. They were not happy. But guess what? They want back in, They're trying to rebuild relationships with Burkina Faso. The president of France, Emmanuel Macron, recently gave a speech. He had the audacity to state, one day, the people of Burkina Faso will thank him and the French people for all the help that he's given them. In response to that speech, the Burkina Faso president, Abraham Traoré, stated very clearly in no uncertain terms, before we can even consider rebuilding the relationship with France, he has stated that he wants France to return every ounce of gold that France had stolen from the mines in Burkina Faso. In response to that, France is trying to play dumb, stating that the gold that they have belongs to them. It came from the mines that they own. But the thing is, and you can do your research to check, there isn't a single gold mine in France. Not one. 125 billion euros. That's how much gold France holds in its reserves. And that's without having a single gold mine in France. So where did that gold come from? And who does it belong to? Okay, now check this. Okay, so let me break it down in plain English. Burkina Faso is now being threatened and targeted by France and its big brother America. The USA has now stepped in. Why? Two reasons. One, they want access to the mineral and asset wealth of Burkina Faso. And two, they don't like the fact that Burkina Faso is developing close relationships with Russia, because that would signal a strategic advantage for Russia, which America is not comfortable with. So what's America's next move? Would you believe it? They have now promoted this man, General Michael Langley. He is the first black man to ever hold such a high military rank in US history, and they've given him a very special assignment. Find a reason to justify US military action in, you guessed it, Burkina Faso. Their excuse? The president of Burkina Faso is guilty of hoarding gold and funding terrorism. Yeah, right. Classic chess move. So from this breakdown, I hope you can see what's happening here. Whenever a Western power, be it European or American, don't get what they want, they start using diplomatic and military tactics to bully boy the situation. However, young people around the world can see through this. But the problem is, many of the older people, including many African leaders, do not. Why? This is because they come from the same generation as General Langley. A generation, in my opinion, who have been shaped, often controlled by colonial powers. Why? This is because this is a generation got their education from schools funded and controlled by Christian missionaries, often controlled by colonial powers. Obedience, fear, and submission. These ideals were drilled deep into their minds from childhood. And if I'm wrong, I'm open to be corrected. This is why some people from a certain generation still believe and would still argue, where would Africa be without colonization and obedience to God and prayer? Take a moment to swallow that and let it sink in, because that's the reality we're facing. But here's the good news. There's a new generation that were built different. Look at the president of Burkina Faso. He's not waiting for prayer to fix this. He's not bowing down to France or the US. He's doing the work. He's standing tall. He's facing the bullies head on. And if you think they can't win, two things. One, I have news for you. And two, watch this space. 100.
Yeah, now I've been watching this for a long time, reading up on Burkina Faso, etc. And I want to tell you something. You know, a lot of folks says, well, what about those old African colonized? I mean, those that are pretty much stooges of the colonizer. And I'm like, the same thing that is occurring in Africa is occurring here. Our minds are being colonized here in the United States, in the Western world, into economic systems that are not beneficial to but a few of us. And we continue, you have a whole lot of Africans in poverty, and you have a whole lot of Africans that are super wealthy. If you visit Lagos, Nigeria, you have the same disease of the economic system that leaves out the most. And then whenever we get leaders like Triori trying to do something that is more egalitarian, what these guys who run these, who were former colonial powers, etc., do is attempt to carve it out. Every single benevolent leader that came up, both in South America, in South America, Central America, the Caribbean, they found some way to annihilate them or worse. So this story is one that I'm going to continue to follow to see how it breaks down. I am very, very proud of this young 30-something-year-old that took over the country. I want to see how far he gets, because that is a good example of enslaving one's mind. In the case of here in America, we have to do that ourselves. We have to no longer believe the fallacies that I heard on one of the pundits today. He said on TV when they were talking about tariffs, etc., etc. He said what Republicans want to promote is not all these tariffs. We want wherever something can be made cheap, make it cheap. Wherever that's what we're looking for. We are capitalists. And then in my mind, I said, guess what? The reason why Donald Trump can reach so many people is because they won't say it. Our MAGA folks won't say that they are anti what capitalism has done. They won't say that. They just have to echo Donald Trump's words. Donald Trump is the ultimate traitor who supports this economic system that screws them all, but understands that it screws them all and tells them that he will be their savior. We have a lot to learn. There's a lot that I want us to understand on our own. The first book that I wrote, the very, very first book that I wrote, As I See It, Class Warfare, the Only Resort to Right-Wing Doom. One of the things that I wanted to, in the index, the table of contents, there's a portion that I describe called What is Wrong with Our Brand of Capitalism. And by the way, this is a book, As I See It, Class Warfare, the Only Resort to Right-Wing Doom. And what I did in this book is I tried to explain not what we learned in school, but the reality of how things work. My first book. And I divided that into financial system, taxation, patent law. People would be like, what the hell is patent law doing in there? Well, patent law is how we keep people down. Patent law is how we allow corporations to really get an inordinate amount of wealth with no competition. Military spending, free trade, government social services, and the market. All of that chapter is what I call the coup de grace on this particular book, Our Economic System. Because those very easy to understand chapters in what is wrong with our brand of capitalism and broken down in those areas give a great synopsis of what's really wrong in simple terms, not using a whole bunch of complicated stuff for people to understand, right? And the other book that I have called How to Make America Utopia, these chapters I have kind of what I try to do is talk about how we are indoctrinated, the economic system explained objectively from the government sector, private sector, and how do we bifurcate them, etc. So you can have a portion of your government that is capitalism, but not all, not necessarily most. Because again, if you believe in humanity, you must believe that a certain part of things cannot be left. Like when somebody has to die because they can't afford a medicine, we should never have medicine and afford in the same sentence. That should never be in the same sentence. Healthcare and afford should never be in the same sentence. And we can have all of that. We can have all of that if we get the system. Marge K, you can go to if you want to know where the books are. Let me go ahead and tell you where the books are. But again, the other thing you can do, Marge, is if you are a subscriber, a paid subscriber, all my books are, guess what, online. All my books are online for our Substack readers. But let me give you, if you want to buy a hard copy, let me give you the link to where all those books are. This is where all those books are. I'm putting it in both the Substack as well as I'm going to put it in chat. So you can find it in both places. That's where all my books are. But the idea here, folks, is this. We have to get away from the indoctrination. I was so proud to see Triori. Triori doesn't buy the Kool-Aid. How can a country like France and Spain, all these guys that had nothing as far as gold resources, they all went to Africa, colonized it, and stole. And they say, oh, these people are poor. But they stole the resources of these people. Well, these people weren't developing their resources. Not true. They just weren't capitalists. They didn't think they had to extract and extract and extract. They get gold and they make their jewelry for beautiful things. And they had their own communities. They had their own pyramids underground. Different lifestyles, different cultures. But these colonizers came in and they just took it, right? So let's be clear. This is just to say we have to free our minds from the indoctrination by a few. Most people are good. Most people are nice. Most people have a heart. Most people are humane. But the people who run our economic systems are evil. Not necessarily but because that's how they were indoctrinated. And then the system goes on automatic pilot. Look, let's keep learning all these things together, understand all these things together. Egberto describing the resource curse, nations with mineral wealth and corrupt governments have the wealth distributed to oligarchs around the world rather than to their own people. Look at Venezuela. Venezuela is sitting on top of the largest reserve of oil. Donald Trump lied in his media appearance today. Nobody corrected him when he said, we have the most oil. Nobody corrected him. No, Trump. Around the entire world, the largest sum of discovered oil right now is Venezuela. And the reason Venezuela does not and will not have success is because they attempted to democratize their oil reserves. And that couldn't happen because what happens if America tried to democratize its oil reserves? What happened if Americans started to ask for all those millions of barrels that are removed from our public lands on a daily basis? Suppose America starts to ask, why don't we democratize our own oil assets, our own mineral assets, and not simply give it to the oligarchs and the oligarchs who sell these stocks? Imagine. That's why Venezuela could never have succeeded. Hugo Chavez, when he was creating los Estados Unidos Bolivarianos, that was the idea. Why could Muammar Gaddafi ever get the African money put together? Because it would have been a challenge. How dare us get African currency and sell oil in African currency after we made a deal with Saudi Arabia to price oil solely in dollars? By the way, that goes out of style, I think, in June. So there's so much that we don't know that if most Americans knew, they would not allow themselves to be ripped off like we are today. Anyway, I have got to get out of here. But beforehand, I'd like to ask you all to become. Catherine Hill says, thanks. Morgan, Egberto, so many books, so little time, but keep reading. I'd like to go ahead and ask you guys, those of you who are not yet paid subscribers to Politics Done Right or to our newsletter, which subsidizes Politics Done Right, to please become paid subscribers. And how can you do that? Simply go to politicsdoneright.com/newsletter. politicsdoneright.com/newsletter. And if you do that, by the way, you get to access all of our books, as part of your paid membership to or paid subscription to our newsletter, Egberto Off the Record. And again, there's a lot of other benefits that you'll get. Just check out the About, and you'll see all the nicks and knacks that you get for being paid subscribers. But I got to get out of here. Got a lot of videos to process, more work to do for make sure that we flood the zone, and we'll continue to flood the zone. And in honor of that great message today from Bergen Creek, and I hope I say the name right. I always get their name incorrect. But Steigen Bergen Greek, in your honor, for that great message that you had today. Folks, let's go out there and get the job done. Share, share, share. Become paid subscribers. Share, share, share. And I'm talking about for those of us that are doing this independent media work, let's keep this baby going. Anyway, got to get out of here. Love you all. My name is Egberto Willies. This is Politics Done Right. And you guys know how I end this baby. I am what? Out! Welcome to Politics Done Right. I am your host, Egberto Willies. This is a progressive program that will take the mystery out of politics. This is the program that will encourage you to make sure government becomes we the people. Whether you are liberal, progressive, conservative, or otherwise, you get to air your point of view. We are an independent media outlet that, unlike mainstream media beholden to corporations, we only owe allegiance to you. Remember, you can also send me a tweet at EGBERTOWILLIES. That is at Egberto Willies. Let us engage. It is Politics Done Right.